Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, Necro Thursday. I hope everyone had a great Halloween, because though we are recording this before Halloween 2022, this episode is coming out after our magnum opus Halloween episode from last week. So I got Jeff with me this week. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing okay. You know, it's been some difficulties in my life, but, you know, I'm choosing to look at the bright side. You know what I mean?
That's all we can do.
Yeah. So, have you checked anything out? You know, this is like the season to be watching good things and, you know, checking out stuff. So, what have you gotten into recently?
You know, my movie count is exceptionally low this Halloween, and I'm not really sure why. I have pretty much every app known to man, but I haven't been watching as much stuff. But there are a few things worth noting. I watched Dahmer and listened to you and Mike cover it. I think we all pretty much have the same thoughts about that. Quite good, but I don't know if enjoyable is really the word for that.
I agree with that. And yeah, I mean, and also just for me, I feel like I kind of moved away from true crime, like serial killer stuff, really. I haven't really been that interested in that stuff for many years at this point. And though if you're going to watch any of the Dahmer stuff out there, I think this is probably the one to really check out. This is probably, in my opinion, like the definitive one, really.
I completely agree with that. And, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, do we need this? Is this exploitation? Is it gross? And I really think this might be the most, if you have to do a show like this or on this subject, this is the right approach, I thought.
You know, they even sort of address that in a very sort of postmodern way when they talk about all the people who were enamored with Jeffrey Dahmer. That was even addressed in the series. You know, they talked about all these people who were like, you know, I'm your biggest fan and this and that and the comics and all that sort of stuff. So that was a cool angle I think they played on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What else? I also, you know, I watched the Argento film, which you guys also covered, and again, agree with your thoughts. It's pretty good. Argento hasn't done anything really worth watching in quite a while, so it was a pleasant surprise that it wasn't terrible. And I'm very happy for Chin, the Chinese kid who escaped. Such a bizarre line.
Yeah.
Couple other on the positive side, I checked out a movie on Shudder I had no expectations for. It was called Speak No Evil.
Yes, I think you and I texted about this briefly. Yeah.
Man, did I love this movie. And I'm sure when we do our end of the year wrap up, we'll talk about it. It's definitely one of the better horror films I've seen all year, but it's not your typical October spooky kind of horror movie. It's more in line with something like the original The Vanishing. Just something that really gets in under your skin and really disturbs you, you know, kind of ruins your day. And those are the kind of horror movies that really that I enjoy. Something that doesn't leave your thoughts for a while, you know.
Well, actually, Jackie over at Into the Necrosphere had messaged me about this very movie, and he liked it. He said that originally he didn't really care for it on first, his first opinion about it, but as time went on, he started thinking about it more, and he recommended it to me. So, Jackie, if you're out there listening to this, definitely I enjoyed it. Enjoy, I don't know if is the right word, but I had an appreciation for the movie because at the end I felt very much anxious and and kind of like unsettled is a good term, I guess.
Yeah, and it's very much a slow burn. It turns that screw real subtly, real slowly, and you're not really quite sure where it's going to go. You might have some ideas, but you know, it's certainly, you know, it was interesting watching it unfold because I really knew nothing about the movie. I just Shudder. Feel like watching something. I'll throw this on, and you know, it had me. Like I was on board almost immediately.
Also, the characters are very European too, man. Like, one couple is Swedish and the other one is Dutch, I think.
Yes, yeah, and some of the movie is in English, but there's a lot of subtitles. Again, if you were one of those people who doesn't like to read subtitles, you're missing out on some great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I know how to read, so I'm cool with all that stuff. But
yeah, I don't. So my girlfriend interprets it for me. Yeah, she reads it to me. It's really difficult when we go to the movie theater. What's that?
With the characters though, just like that kind of European, and not so much. These aren't really. This isn't applicable to the Brits out there, because the Brits are like a little bit more terse, I think, at times than the mainland Europeans. Like they have this, these manners. You know what I mean? They're very polite at times and bordering on passive aggressive. I think. I'm talking about Swedes and Dutch and some of the Germans and stuff like that. And these characters were very much showcasing those traits, I think, in this film.
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes being too nice can be your downfall, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. On a less positive note, I'm watching Gotham. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I feel like I've been watching it for at least a month now.
There's a lot of episodes. There's definitely a lot of episodes out there.
Well, I thought I was close to the end, and I looked, and I was still on season 2. like it just moves so quickly. And these characters are so fully developed, and Batman is still a little kid. It's not a good show, but I originally started watching it when my girlfriend was out of town. I like to have something on the TV in the background. And I was like, oh yeah, Batman, Gotham. I remember when the show was on the air. I watched a few, and it's just really deeply silly. And even if you take out the Batman mythos and lore, it's just a bad cop show. Like a really bad one that doesn't seem to have any knowledge of police procedure or anything. And you add the Batman stuff, and it's just sort of like a very weird take on that world, like Schumacher-esque and deeply campy and silly and goofy. Did you ever? I know you like Batman, so I'm assuming you've probably seen the show or at least some of it.
Yeah, I mean, I acknowledge it's not very well. I mean, there are things about it I like, actually. I find it entertaining. And
oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider this to be part of like the Batman canon in any way, and my mom actually she turned me on to the show. I remember one time I was visiting up there, and my mother asked me if I'd seen Gotham, and I was like, I had heard about it. It looked intriguing to me because I am a Batman fan, and we watched a few episodes together, and I thought it was pretty entertaining. Like, I like their take on the Penguin in that,
Yeah, sort of like, he's starting off as like a low-level, sycophant scumbag who's evilly plotting away in his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Joker and take on the Joker, I thought was kind of weird. Like, he was almost like this guy doing David Bowie or something like that as the Joker,
Yeah, and again, all these Batman villains are almost completely fully formed, and and you're still years away from him the kid becoming Batman, and it's just a strange take. It's always been my perception is that Batman brings the strangeness to Gotham. He's like a magnet, and here it's sort of the opposite, where I don't know if he does show up in the show. But if he does, it's not going to seem that strange because you've already had all of these fucking weirdos and crazy outfits like tearing up the city.
Yeah, that's always been my take on it as well. And like I said, it's like a weird alternative multiverse version of Batman, I guess.
It's also interesting that you have really, really good actors up against really bad actors. Like, you have seasoned character actors, and they're acting as someone who should be on a CW show.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. I can see that.
It,
They have
it, it,
Donald Logue is in that.
yeah, he's great. I love him.
Yeah.
You got him. You got the guy who plays Falcone. I don't know his name, but he was on The Wire. Very good character actor. Kind of always plays like a hard ass. He's very good at it. Michael Chiklis from The Shield, also a great actor. And then you got like a lot of like sort of people who are casting bigger parts who aren't really up to the task. You have what's her name, Jada Pinkett Smith, just hamming it up every fucking second she's on screen. But she seems to get it. She knows the kind of show she's in and the tone they're going for. So, it's not a great performance, but it's fitting of the show.
Yeah, I prefer her work in Extreme Music actually to her work on Gotham.
Holy shit, I forgot about that. She was in a fucking quote-unquote metal band. That's right.
Yeah, it's like this new metal band. It's kind of funny.
What would they call it? Like Wicked something?
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah. Anytime you have Wicked in your name, it's probably not good. What about you, man? What have you been catching up on?
Well, the biggest news of the week is I saw Terrifier 2 a couple nights ago.
In the theater.
Yep.
Did you pass out and vomit?
No, but some people did leave during the screening. Yeah. There are some
really?
It was this is like the extended week. It's supposed to be out of the theaters already. But the movie's been killing it at the box office, so they extended it another week. And I thought, well, if I'm going to see it in a theater, I got to make my move. So Wednesday night, I pre-purchased tickets. It was only showing in one theater in this area, down in New Brunswick, not the AMC by my house, but like right down like another town away. So I got tickets for the one showing they had. I went. There was like still a fair amount of people there, and 2.5 hours did not seem like 2.5 hours. And there's a couple of people who couldn't hang, and they left.
Did you say 2.5 hours?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's okay. Color me intrigued.
It's dude. It's I don't. We're gonna talk about it, so I don't want to get too into it. But I really really fucking liked it, man. And I have been on board with Art the Clown. When he was in all the brief, his first appearance in All Hallows Eve. That sort of, I guess it's a collection of shorts that Damien Leone did. And then, of course, the first Terrifier, which was, just a study in extreme violence, but it was still, I saw some, promise with that. And the second one, man, the Terrifier 2, it's like leaps and bounds a huge level up for Damien Leone.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's, I was blown away by how good it was, honestly. Sure, it's not everyone's cup of tea. Let's get that right out there on the table that this is not for everyone, this movie, absolutely not. But if it's if you can enjoy stuff like this, then this is I think one of the best slasher films made since slasher films started, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember when you and I did our very first podcast together, Everything Went Black. I forget the number, but we did our top 10 horror movies of the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And Terrifier was on your list. So I'm very aware of your fondness of them. I took one look at the trailer for Terrifier and was like, yeah, no, not for me. But maybe I should rethink that. I should give it a watch.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, when I was driving home, I was like thinking about like, man, the cool thing I like about it, and we'll definitely get more into this when we talk about it, either with you or Mike or whatever. But like, it's there's a lot of this worship of the '80s going on in a lot of films. Yeah. Oh, we're making a slasher, or we're remaking Halloween, or we're redoing this, or redoing that, or redoing Hellraiser, like we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like Damien Leone made a film that takes that stuff. It doesn't seem nostalgic in any way, but it's in the same spirit of those movies. He's not trying to like add depth to the character or modernize it in any way. Like this movie is sort of timeless. The setting of Terrifier 2 could be in the 80s, or it could be now, or it could be 5 years ago. There's no reference. There's no catering to nostalgia or anything in this film, and also there's like in my opinion, a huge nod to Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, in just how over the top the violence is, bordering on camp, and that's really what this movie's all about, man. But there's definitely some fucking high concepts going on too, which I really appreciated, and a whole like world building that went on during this. And there's going to be more of these movies, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, oh, great. And also, like, it's been a great month for horror. It's cleaning up at the box office. That is, and you have Smile, Barbarian all overperforming. And Halloween Ends, which, I'll save my thoughts on that for when we talk about it. Underperformed a little bit, but still, made a good chunk of change. It's profitable. It's a hit.
Oh, you mean last week's episode about Halloween?
Yes. That's what I meant.
We're doing this out of sequence.
Little brain fart there.
That's all good, man. Everyone's on board.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
That's a good way to handle nostalgia too. Like on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have a movie like It Follows, which is kind of how I would describe it too. Like it feels timeless. Like this could have taken place in the 80s or the 90s, and it's not overly nostalgic, but just has that vibe to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's in line with that too in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? That's for sure it is. Let's see what else. I checked out the new American Horror Story. I was pleasantly surprised that there was a new season, honestly. Brandon actually told me about it. Brandon Legion over at the Horror Wolf podcast. He mentioned something to me, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. And lo and behold, it was on Hulu, so I watched it. And the first episode I thought was really good, Oh,
okay. I've only seen 2 seasons of that show, very spread out. One was enjoyable trash, and the other was just trash.
I have a soft spot in my heart for that show. I will never back it in a way, like I would never go to the mats for the show, really, you know what I mean? I'm not going to be like a diehard fan or anything, but I watch every season when it comes out. I'm there. And I think there's a lot. Every season had something good and something bad about it. But ultimately for me, it was enjoyable and quite entertaining. And I was excited because I was like, oh wow, this is cool. Like, there was some unpleasant business in the early part of the evening I had to manage, and then I turned the TV on, and then it was like, oh wow, American Horror Story. Let me watch this, and it was pretty good, And then
I get the appeal. It's not like it's completely lost on me why people would like it, and I'll probably end up watching more seasons. Also, that's the kid who plays Dahmer who's in that.
Evan Peters.
Those. Yep. Yeah. He's one of the X-Men too, I think.
Quicksilver.
Quicksilver. Right. Yeah. Great actor.
I know. I really back that dude, man. And I think that he was in a couple of movies, like low budget films, but primarily he's a TV actor. And I just think that guy's a great actor, man. He's very I would like to see him in a film. You know what I mean? I feel like him and Bill Skarsgård are similar in some ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good comparison. Yeah, for sure.
They're like the most handsome, weird-looking dudes ever.
Yeah, born to be character actors.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he played a MAGA troll, like cult leader, in the one season I kind of enjoyed of American Horror Story, and he was very good in it. And again, just knew the kind of show he was in, so his performance is a little campy, a little fun, but grounded and serious when it needed to be. I thought he was one of the big reasons I kept watching.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I've been watching the 100 Scariest Moments on Shudder.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Generally pretty good, but I have to say, man, too much annihilation on there. And not for nothing, the bear is not scary. That's all I have to say about it, man.
Were you not a fan of that movie?
I just was kind of unmoved by it, I guess. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
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 I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I can see there's a lot to like about it, but I feel like a lot of the story might have been left untold, or maybe this needed to be, because it's based on a trilogy of books, and
Right.
actually Rennie and I were just texting about this, and he's going to loan me the first one to read, so I'm going to check it out. And
Okay, I only knew that that was a series of books when there was a little bit of controversy when the movie came out. That I believe the character that Natalie Portman plays in the book is Asian.
some neckbeard is like, she's Korean instead of this white lady. Like someone was like really upset
It was
about
some,
that.
yeah, some white lady was upset about it or something. I don't know. They're upset about this movie that no one fucking saw.
Yeah.
That's interesting though. Yeah, I wouldn't really consider that a scary movie. I think the bear with the human scream is deeply unsettling, but I don't know if it would make my top 100 scariest moments. But I do enjoy shows like that, and
Yeah.
they're fun to watch with your partner or friend or whatever, and talk about the movies they're talking about. I enjoy that stuff a lot.
Those are these hundreds, these types of shows where it's like lists and all that. I really like. They're fun, and they have a lot of people
Yeah.
like, Fede Alvarez is on there. Kate Siegel. How do you say her last
Yes, I think I'm not sure. Is
Yeah.
she related to Steven Seagal?
name? Imagine.
Well, which leads me to ask, what do you think number one is going to be, and what would be your number one?
Oh, dude. I'll tell you right now what my number one would be. It would be the moment that Captain Howdy's face gets flashed on the screen in Exorcist.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Very good choice.
I've told this many times before, but my earliest cinematic memory is sitting in the backseat of my parents' car to drive in, watching The Exorcist. It was like I was way too young to see that movie, and that movie deeply affects me because of that experience, I believe. Yeah. So that terrified me when I was a kid, and it still terrifies me. Like even now, because I just watched it a few days ago, and I was like, that scene's coming up, man. I'm going to close my eyes. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see that face. Oh, there's a face. Just, that face. But yeah, it's that's probably my number one, honestly.
Great pick, and it's amazing how something like that, something so young, can affect you throughout your entire life.
Yeah, definitely.
Because my number one, if I'm being honest, maybe Jaws when the kid gets eaten, but
Sure.
It would be the Jordy Verrill segment of Creepshow.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That I know, seeing it as an adult, it's campy and goofy, but man, seeing that as a young kid really disturbed me to the point where I didn't want to walk on grass after watching that.
Yeah, dude. I have to watch that one before Halloween is Creepshow. I gotta check that out again.
Yeah, man, that's like every few years.
Yeah,
you gotta watch Creepshow, and Creepshow 2 also, not that bad.
Yeah. We've been talking about that one a lot over the last few months.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
So also, I went back and started rewatching the Hannibal TV series, which I always loved, and
okay, I've never seen it.
It's great. I think it's on Hulu. So if you want, I highly recommend it to anyone out there who is interested in Hannibal Lecter. This is a very, very interesting take on the story, and it's more about Will Graham, actually. And it takes place before Silence of the Lambs, so it's like a prequel to that whole thing. And
okay.
It's dark, man, and just somber and very heavy feeling. And it's obviously it got canceled because it was on NBC. It wasn't on it was before the onslaught of Prime and Netflix and all this stuff. It was when regular television was still a thing, and people were just turned off by it because it was too heavy.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's what kept me away from it. I was a horror on NBC or whatever network it was on. But that guy, the creator of the show, he's on a lot of these shows that
Brian
we're talking
Fuller.
about, 101. Yeah, and I hear him on podcasts all the time. He seems like a very interesting fellow.
I like Brian Fuller, man. First of all, everything has to do with being gay. Everything. number one according to him.
Yes, I noticed.
Male sexual tension, but whatever, that's cool. I mean, I'm down with whatever his thoughts are about those things, but I really enjoy that guy whenever he's a guest on anything. And
I do too.
Yeah, and he told a story about a serial killer that was in the town that he grew up in, I think in Colorado maybe. And I went and I researched it a little bit, and I put some notes together, but I never followed up on anything. But yeah, the guy's like a fan of this genre, and he's got really cool ideas. And I look forward to. Apparently, he's redoing Christine or something like that, I think.
Yeah, which I'm very, very curious to see his take on that.
It's going to be like a Scorpio Rising version of Christine or something, like a Kenneth Anger version of the take on that, maybe.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that happens. Hopefully that gets made because I'd really like to see his take. It's a fairly straightforward book, but we'll see. I heard him on a podcast talking about Christine before he was even attached to direct it or anything, and he had a take on it that was pretty different.
I appreciate it though, man, because it's just everyone's got a different lens that they see the world through, man. And I'm like, I never thought of it that way. That's pretty interesting,
And that's why I don't discredit remakes, because someone could have a unique take on something. Someone could watch a film and think, hey, I got ideas in this world. Just because it's a remake doesn't automatically mean it's crap or unoriginal or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, totally. And then to round it out, since it is the Halloween season, I've been banging out episodes. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. I've been watching episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer pretty religiously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, every evening I've been checking out a couple of those, and they're always fun. I was a big fan in the back in the 90s. And
I
love it, man. You know what, man? It still holds up to this day. The writing on the show is great. The dialogue is great. It's Joss Whedon. I know people have their ideas about him, but
sure.
I think that he's a master storyteller, and I think that the series really holds up. It's fun. There's like a bit of that comedic element to it, but there's also really good storylines too, and good characters. And I've always loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
It is. It's crazy that a movie that kind of went nowhere and wasn't really well loved at the time spawned such a popular, quintessential '90s TV show.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, when you think about the '90s TV, you're going to think of X-Files, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and fucking Friends or something like that,
or Twin Peaks too. Yeah.
Oh, Twin Peaks. Yeah, was Twin Peaks not the 89 or
Twin Peaks might have been the 1990 or something like that.
Yeah. That's good point. Somehow that escaped my mind, but yes.
Well,
Twin Peaks. Yeah.
I didn't own a TV throughout the entire 90s, so I was on this kind of Huck Finn adventure through most of the 90s, and and I didn't really watch Twin Peaks live on TV. I watched it like on VHS tapes.
Me too. Actually, the very first 2 or 3 months I lived in Boston, I was hanging out with Chris Smershak, the original keyboardist for ISIS. We knew each other from Connecticut, and I would just go over to his dorm room, and we'd watch bang out 2 or 3 episodes of Twin Peaks. And the show is great, but again, it will forever remind me of that time in my life. Anytime Twin Peaks is on, I think of being 20 years old, being in Boston City living in the city for the first time.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also didn't own a TV.
Yeah, totally, man. It's like I would be in houses where there would be TVs, but we would just have a VHS player or something like that. We didn't really have a connection or to cable, or there'd be the rabbit ears and you get one channel or something, back in the dawn of time, before everything was wired the way it is now.
Crazy, isn't it? It wasn't that long ago we were watching square boxes, but watching VHS tapes on them. It wasn't really that long ago.
That's the thing. It is a long time ago. When you really,
what? You're right.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Like people have lived entire lives in that period of time. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. I think about my grandmother who died just a few months shy of being 100. Look at all the changes she saw in that span.
Yeah.
I mean, you showed her a cell phone. She thought it was like the devil or something. You know, she didn't know what the fuck it was. Yeah. Exactly. So, oh God, if I make it that long, who the fuck knows what the world's going to look like?
Well, before we get going on the subject of today's episode, I want to talk to you about some of the other friends we have out there, the legions of the the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse is who I'm
Mike, I told you not to drink before the podcast.
Of course, I'm talking about the horsemen, no longer 4 of the podcasting apocalypse. So pretty much every day of the week, we've got you guys covered with incredible content, adventurous, incredible content. Starting on Monday, we have the Horror Wolf 666 podcast hosted by our friend Brandon Legion. On Tuesday, we have Into the Necrosphere, which if you like metal and extreme music, this is for you. It's the only music podcast I even listen to. And that's brought to you every week by my friend, Jackie Smith. Wednesday is Everything Went Black, which is a podcast that I've been doing as a labor of love for many, many years at this point. And it's very eclectic. Mm-hmm. It has interviews. It's got, little shows on there. We talk about records. We got bands on there as a guest. We have writers on there. We have filmmakers, all kinds of stuff that kind of reflects the things that I'm interested in, and hopefully some of you are interested in as well. Of course, Thursday. Of course, Thursday is Necro Thursday, which is Necromaniacs coming at you with an action-packed episode every week. Friday is Break the Apocalypse, featuring Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper. And that's like a very observational, comedic take on the world we live in. We take Saturday off. Saturday is a good day. Friday night, you go out, have a good time. Saturday is the day you recover. But Sunday, the Lord's Day, Carl Hikara comes at you with Soul Knocks for all things occult, esoteric, and just strange. So that's pretty much all we have, man. That's like a really solid offering. So when you guys are done with this, check these shows out.
Absolutely. And I'd like to point out, I'm sure I pointed out before, you were the very first person I knew that had a podcast before I even knew what the fuck a podcast was.
You're like, what the hell?
I often refer to you as the Joe Rogan of metal.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, you mean like I'm like a anti-vaxxer, like meathead, basically?
No, not at all. But just, when I think of the early days of podcasting, those are the names that come up, Joe Rogan and Mike Hill.
No, Joe Rogan really is where everyone, I think, most people kind of look to him as like the inspiration to doing this thing, really. I mean, I like Joe Rogan. I didn't mean to come off as disparaging. But, just like everyone else, you agree with some stuff, you don't agree with certain things. There's criticisms to be made all around at everybody for everything. No one's perfect. Right. So why should you, want everyone to be on point all the time? That's just the way law of averages says that sometimes you're wrong about things. That's how it is.
Absolutely. And I'd also like to point out I had been a guest on Everything Went Black. So go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear me spew some bullshit.
Oh, yeah. We've had Eugene Robinson. We had Jeff. We had Aaron Harris has been on a few times. Aaron Turner has been on there, I think.
Yes.
Keith Morris was on. Like, we have like a bunch of people on there.
Yeah. Collected guests. You just had my good friend John Lamacchia on.
John Lamacchia, yep, that's right. Sarah Timms. Sarah Timms has been on, yes.
Yes, great Sarah. Awesome. Great stuff.
Karen Crisis, for all you New Yorkers out there, she was a guest on a few years ago. So.
Oh, wow. I remember her from way back in the day.
Yeah. It's it's fun. So, Hellraiser. What can we say about this movie?
Well, where do you want to start, Mike? When's the last time you watched the original run of Hellraisers? Have you seen them all, or has it been a while?
Yeah, I've seen them. Well, actually, you know what? I tapped out after 4, I believe. Okay, so I haven't really watched any of the later ones.
I thought I saw all of them, and then I was watching like someone critique. There was one or two that Doug Brady wasn't in. Someone else was playing Pinhead. So then I realized I have not seen all of them.
Yeah. I read on Everything Went Black. I did like a little more about the Hellbound Heart, but Paul from Wrestle Spirit came on and we talked about our expectations of this movie. We hadn't seen it because the movie hadn't come out. So that episode was more of like an exploration and review of our experiences with the IP and what our thoughts are about the book, which I hold in very high esteem. The first film and all the series. So if maybe as a refresher, if you guys want to go back and listen to that, that'd be cool too. But I haven't seen all of them. I've only seen up until like 4.
Yeah, for I guess you can call it research. I watched the first 4 before this Hellraiser came out, and I mean, it's interesting. I remember 2 as a kid being my favorite and being the best Hellraiser movie. Watching it now, I'm not even sure I really liked it.
Yeah, man. I've had this very same conversation with other people too. I think Paul and I actually talked about it. And I don't like it as much as I remember liking the second one. Okay?
Yes. Yeah.
And the first one, the original, I watch that every couple of months, man. Like I always put that on. I love the first Hellraiser movie. And I love the Hellbound Heart novella, and essentially that's the same. It's just a movie cinematic version of that novella, and it works really well. I think there's so much in that story, and none of the sequels or reimaginings of this thing have captured what I really consider to be the essence of the story, which I think is presented in the first movie and in the novella, and it's yeah. So that to me is gold. The second one, I don't hate it, but I don't enjoy it as much as I still enjoy it. Okay, I'll still watch the 2 back to back and be kind of into it, but it has the it just doesn't rate that high with me these days.
No, it kind of has no plot either.
Yeah,
like it's just a bunch of things just kind of happening, and you just go along with it.
I think. Yeah, and the thing where it falls short, and this happens all the time in every franchise, is when they try to give backstories to these characters, like the more supernatural characters, like the Cenobites. I like it vague. I think they should stay vague.
I agree. I mean, my thoughts of the first one holds up better than I remember it. I liked it more seeing it now. I hadn't seen it in probably 10 years or so. It's a great movie. And considering Clive Barker had never directed before, it's really impressive. And the Cenobites aren't the centerpiece. They're not even really the bad guys. They're just sort of these hell priests doing their job. And they're not in the movie a lot. And I think that's why it works. I think that's what makes them so creepy.
Yes, I agree with that 100%, because the Hellraiser movie, and I'm going to say Hellraiser. I'm not going to say Hellbound Heart. Okay, Hellraiser idea is more almost akin to like a cosmic horror Lovecraftian story where these malevolent forces they're just amoral. Like they don't have a evil or good aspect to them. They're dark, but they're just like acting out their nature, really. You know what I mean? Like there's a world of heightened extreme experience. And if you want to step into that threshold, these are the forces that you have to contend with. They're not evil. It's your decision to go into that world. And that's, hence Frank. Frank is a guy who's always looking for the next sensation, the next experience, and he chose to go into that world and open a doorway into this dimension of pain and pleasure, indistinguishable, basically, and that's like the essence of the film. And the Cenobites are just like part of that environment that they exist in, and it's a love story between Frank and Julia, and that's the centerpiece of the story, really.
Absolutely, and yeah, it's the main characters are not very likable, and you spend the majority of the movie with them. Mm-hmm. It does have some generic 80s tropes, but whatever. Like, you got the daughter, Julia,
Oh,
who's
the daughter is Kirsty.
Kirsty. That was it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Julia was the. Yeah, Kirsty's a little underwritten, and kind of like your typical '80s final girl, but whatever. Aside from that kind of stuff, it holds up really well, especially when you compare it to Hellraiser 3 and 4, which I'd never seen 4 before, but I had seen 3 right when it came out, and man, like it shows you how wrong something like this can go.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, they
man.
kind of turned Pinhead into like Freddy Krueger and the bad guy, and this evil, cackling, laughing guy creating CD spitting Cenobites.
Oh man.
And it's really awful. I'm kind of surprised that the movie has as much love as it does. I know a lot of people who like that one a lot.
Really?
Yeah, oddly enough, maybe it's an age thing. Maybe like they were like 9 or so or 10 when they saw it, and it had a different sort of effect on them. Whereas I was, a teenager or something, and now I'm an adult, and the whole thing was just absolutely silly and stupid and kind of just shit all over like Clive Barker's creation, I think.
I really don't like the third one at all, actually. I remember you and I talked about talking about it, actually. We were going to do something with maybe the entire run or something, and then I rewatched it, and I was like, man, I can't. I have nothing really good to say about this film, so,
Yeah, well, and then you compare that to 4. I mean, 4 is just an abomination, man. It's really bad.
Takes it to another level of just poor filmmaking,
Yeah, I mean, it was credited to Alan Smithy, the famous synonym of a director who wants their name removed from the film. So if a director sees, I don't know, I'm sure most people know this, but if a director doesn't back his movie, he'll fight to have his name taken off it. And for a good chunk of time, they would just use the name Alan Smith. So this is an Alan Smith movie.
That's funny. John Smith.
Yeah, it is funny.
Yeah.
Alan, oh man, 4 is just bad. Well, when you take your franchise to outer space, you know things are scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, that happened in other franchises actually too, where they go into outer space.
Yeah, Jason X, Friday the 13th 10, or whatever you want to call it. Very bad. Leprechaun movie, I think they went to space in like the 3rd or 4th one. Those movies were just bad to begin with, so it didn't.
You didn't have very good starter material on that one either, so
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just that whole franchise is just scraping the bottom of the barrel, But so that brings us to Hellraiser 2022. It was inevitable that this was going to be remade. Watching the first one, I can see how someone can watch this and think, "Oh, I got an idea set in this world. I got something cool to say about this." I wasn't completely against it being remade. How did you feel?
I was so jaded by years of disappointment with this franchise, where I was like, you know what, man, why the hell not? You know what I mean? But like, because the comic book adaptations, like the comics have taken this storyline in different directions, and it's possible, I think, to make interesting stories within this world with the Cenobites, And I thought maybe in this day and age where people are taking, the comic books seriously, that maybe they would read a few of those and maybe be inspired. Maybe not so much adapting them, but having their imaginations inspired by some of the stories that were done. And well, they didn't do that in this one, unfortunately. But,
I was gonna ask if I didn't read the comics, but
no,
it didn't feel like.
Yeah. It wasn't. But I went into it with an open mind, man. I'm like, you know what? Maybe. Everyone was up in arms that Jamie Clayton was going to be the Hell Priest, and I'm like, I didn't care. You know what I mean? It was like, whatever. You want to.
Not even a bit. Yeah.
Not even a thing.
Did not care.
Yeah. I mean, to me, Doug Bradley will always be the Hell Priest, but I understand. The dude's no spring chicken. I get it.
Sure, and this is its own thing. They're doing their own thing.
Exactly.
This is not a legacy sequel. This is a remake. They're starting a new series of Hellraiser movies. Well, probably. I'm sure more of these will pop up.
Well, another thing, there was also a series that HBO was going to be doing on Hellraiser too. That Paul and I talked about this. There was like all this press about a series that had nothing to do with this film that HBO was going to do, and then that just got lost in the shuffle. Like I don't even know if that's happening anymore.
Yeah. See, I had read so much, so I was kind of confused. Like, I was like, "Oh, is this a series? Is this a movie?" I wasn't sure. I also don't know the status of that. I think was David Gordon Green involved with it at some point? The Halloween remake guy or sequel guy.
There have been a host of other people that were involved originally in potentially directing and writing this. And
always a good sign.
Yeah, this has been in discussion since like 2008, I think. And
wow.
Yeah, there is let me think. Let me go back and see. I have some notes here. Yeah, this goes all the way back to 2006. That's when Barker was actually that he would be writing the script for a forthcoming remake. That was back in 2006. In 2007, Julian Maury and Alexandra Bustillo were supposed to direct it. And as you know, those are the guys who did Martyrs, the French film Martyrs.
Now, that would have been a very interesting take.
And that's what I'm trying to say, man. Like, that was, that would have been fucking amazing, I thought. You know what I mean? Actually,
most likely, yes.
Did I get that right? Hold on a second. Martyrs.
I thought they did Inside.
No, you're right. You know what? I fucked that up, and shame on me because I just talked about like one of my favorite movies, and I got it wrong. But okay, Uh-oh. Inside is another great. All right, so this is what's going on in 2006, 2007. All right, okay. Pascal Laugier, who was the director of Martyrs, was also attached to this too. So I'm not completely out of my mind when I came up with this stuff. So originally it was the team that did Inside, okay, and then Pascal Laugier was supposed to do it, who did Martyrs, okay, and now this is all between 2006 and 2009, and that's when all the French extreme was hitting the United States. There was all those great films, Inside, Martyrs, Frontiers, High Tension, High Tension. All those movies were starting to really sink in with the American audiences out here, and those were big names, like up and comers back then. Now, can you imagine if either the Inside guys or the Martyrs director teamed up with Clive Barker to reimagine the Hellraiser universe? What that would have been like?
I can't imagine, and I'm sad it doesn't exist.
Yeah. So that's would have made a lot of sense to me, especially the Martyrs angle. Like even that storyline, is so much in line with the idea of Hellraiser. So yeah.
And I think we would have gotten something much, much more disturbing. Martyrs is a film I can't ever watch again.
It's like my favorite movie that I've only watched once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So them playing in this sandbox with Clive Barker's involvement, on paper, that's a home run. No question.
Yeah. So this is when things kind of get hazy. Like as back in 2019, another guy was involved. Barker was out of the picture, and that's when this discussion of having a series and a film that aren't related was put on the table. And that's how David Bruckner, who directed The Night House, got online with this whole thing. And he was the director. So I guess let's give the credits now. It's directed by David Bruckner, who directed The Ritual, The Night House. Mm-hmm. And there's a rumor that he's going to remake The Exorcist. All right.
Oh, interesting. Because I know David Gordon Green was attached or is still currently attached to that.
Okay. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah.
Written by Ben Collins and Luke Petrowski. Now, those two writers also were the writers of The Night House. Okay, so there's an aura here. Okay, Bruckner and his writing staff, The Night House, which I did not like, and Hellraiser. Okay, but Bruckner directed The Ritual, which I liked. Okay, so I guess I'm trying to formulate who should get the bulk of my vitriol about this movie.
All right, well, let's talk about the director for a second. You and I covered The Night House.
Yes.
We both thought it was, I think we both gave it a 3. It's not terrible, but it's kind of stupid when you really stop to think about it. The Ritual you liked a lot more than I did. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I would say it's about the same.
All right.
There is something just flat about his directing. Almost workmanlike, doesn't really seem to have a vision, and seems like an odd choice for Hellraiser.
I agree 100%. And I think when The Night House came out, you reminded me that this is the guy who was going to be handling Hellraiser. And that's when some of my trepidations about watching Hellraiser and whether or not I would enjoy it started surfacing, was during this period.
Right. Yeah, just right away, just a weird choice to have this kind of guy do something, something that's requires a vision. Like, even if you don't like the original Hellraiser, it is definitely Clive Barker's vision. It's got his fingerprints all over it, and that's, I think, what makes it special. It's handled with someone who really cares and has a connection to the material. This movie, right off the bat, feels very workmanlike. And before we even start talking about the movie, I have to get this out of the way. Fucking commercials during a movie on a streaming service that you pay for.
Yeah, dude. It was just fucking rude, man. I agree.
Uncalled for.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, anyway, this movie is not, even without commercials, it's 2 hours long. When I saw that runtime, I thought, oh, interesting. Maybe we're going to get a slow burn, maybe more of a detectives type story, like a mystery. But that was not the movie that I saw.
The feeling I got is no one read the book, and no one really, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like no one did their homework on this universe, really, you know?
Yeah, I don't like to bring up like marketing and exterior things when talking about a movie, because it has nothing to do with the quality of the movie itself. But when I started trotting out Clive Barker to talk about this in the press, it kind of was like, they're really trying to sell it like, oh, Clive Barker liked it. He's backing it. Like, that doesn't mean it's good, and that doesn't mean that's true.
That'd be funny if there was footage of them handing him like a envelope with money, like after he makes these statements. It's like there's some like cell phone footage of someone handing him like a big envelope, or something,
That is my sneaking suspicion that something like that happened. But in a movie that's 2 hours long, right almost immediately, I thought you could shave the first 7 or 8 minutes out of this movie, because it has 2 intros. The first scene is in Serbia. I was like, okay, interesting. And then maybe a minute later, you're in Massachusetts to the second intro, which I thought was just a very weird, unnecessary thing to even have that scene in Serbia. Why is that in the movie? It doesn't need to be there. This thing's 2 hours long, and right there, boom, cut a couple minutes out.
Yeah, definitely. 2 hours, it was a hard 2 hours, honestly, on this one.
Yeah, and then you get this like intro that really just turned me off to it almost immediately. It looked like a TV show.
That's exactly my feelings about it, which I was going to bring up, was the overall just like lack of grit to this film, like the way it looked.
Yeah, it is so vanilla. and safe. And okay, so let's talk about the intro scene a little bit for a second. First of all, what is this fucking kid doing at this party?
Oh, the guy,
Everyone's
you mean
dressed up.
Joey Cascuna, as played by Kit Clark.
Yes.
Kit, Kit Clark is like, I wonder if I didn't. I should look up to see if that's like a porno name almost. You know what I mean?
He looks like he might have done done some time in that world.
Yeah, like an adult film actor, Kit Clark. Yeah.
Yeah, and his performance is about as good as one of those. Again, he's in a tank top and looks sort of like I mean, I got a male escort kind of vibe from his character.
Well, yeah, he was like a sex worker. That's what they were trying to frame him up as. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you're right, because I remember they call him a sex worker, not a prostitute.
Yeah.
Which irked me for some reason. I can't really explain why, but it bothered me. Anyway, you get this scene, and you know what's coming. This guy's bait for the box. And this movie just really thinks it's clever when you hear him screaming in pain, which morphs into two people having sex in the next scene. Which is about as clever as this movie gets.
Yeah, let's just run down some of the cast, too. So, of course, we have Kit Clark as Joey Cascuna, the first victim of this film. And then the star, I would say, is Odessa Azion as Riley.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's a recovering drug addict.
I got some thoughts about that.
Yeah. Her boyfriend, since we were just talking about, the two of them having sex, is Drew Starkey as Trevor, and the two of them met in like an NA meeting, like narcotics.
Something like that. Yeah,
they met in that sort of meeting. Jamie Clayton, who has always been in the press about being the Hell Priest, is also in this film. Now, let me ask you a question. All of the hubbub about her being cast as the Hell Priest, she's not really. I wouldn't even say she's a major player in this film.
No, she's hardly in it.
Yeah.
It's
irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant. Everyone was concerned about her being a woman. Oh, why we have a woman? It's irrelevant whether or not she was a man or a woman, really. And it's just she's like dressing, the scene dressing, really, for the most part.
Yeah, there was some sort of backlash against this, as calling it the woke Hellraiser movie, because before anyone had seen a second of footage, it was dubbed that.
We have Brandon Flynn as her brother Matt, and Brandon Flynn. I've seen his work before in 13 Reasons Why, that suicide show on Netflix.
Oh, never saw that.
I quite liked it. I mean, it's definitely a YA type of thing, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, YA can be great. I like the Divergent movies.
Yeah.
Sue me.
And Adam Faison, or if you're French, Faison, as Colin.
Mm-hmm.
That's his partner. And then the various other people that play the various Cenobites, and we don't have to go into everyone's name, but those are, I guess, I would call them the kind of main players in this film.
Sure, and of course Roland Voigt, played by someone whose last name I can't pronounce.
Yeah, he's actually, I left him out. That's Gyaran Visnish, maybe. So
yeah.
Now, one thing I want to say too is a lot of people are commenting on how gay this is. How gay Hellraiser is, and I'm like, mates. Have you guys seen and even know who fucking Clive Barker is?
Right.
I'm like,
exactly.
What the fuck do you expect, man? This is, yes, it is gay. It is very gay because that's kind of the trip, really. You know what I mean?
I would argue that the original Hellraiser, although it has no gay characters in it, is gayer than this movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean. That's kind of the thing, man. It's like, I just think people are way too sensitive about, or they don't know the background, or they're not don't know anything about Clive Barker, or any of that kind of stuff. where the creator of this IP is aggressively gay. Like, he is not aggressive in a bad way, but he is loud and proud about being gay, and it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of his fiction has elements of that lifestyle in it, and that's what you should be expecting when you get into some of his storytelling. Even though he didn't write this, but the characters and the overall atmosphere of the show should reflect that. So I expected there to be some sensuality or some hedonistic, vibe, and of course there was gay characters. We had a gender switch on the Hell Priest, which is largely irrelevant. So.
Yeah, well, let's start with that with Pinhead. As much as there was such a backlash about it, there also was, and I did read some press about this. I try not to when we're covering it, but it's been a few weeks, and people just praising her performance as amazing, and I thought, really? I mean, by no means was she bad, but I really think Pinhead is 90% that costume and the makeup, and you just gotta don't overact, and you got it. You can do it, and that's what she did.
Yeah, I mean, nothing on her. I mean, she did what she was supposed to do, because I mean, her voice was pitch corrected or dropped in pitch, and it was a lot of makeup and CGI and stuff, and it was, I mean, the Cenobites were more of a prop in this movie really than anything else. And
sure, yeah,
they were in the film because you have to have Cenobites in a Hellraiser film.
Yeah, and I really thought that was one of the few bright spots in the movie. I liked the redesign of the Cenobites. I thought they looked unsettling. I thought, yeah, again, she was fine as Pinhead. She doesn't have much to do except, I mean, I don't even think she moves at all. Like, she literally just stands there and delivers her lines.
Yeah.
But it was a bright spot in an otherwise very vanilla movie that I think thinks it's more clever than it actually is. Like you had mentioned, the main character, Riley, is a drug addict. And, they make it a point to bring that up several times. But does that have any bearing on the plot of this movie whatsoever, did you think?
No, and I'm going to go into some of this too, because I have like I have some thoughts on this too. All right. When I first heard that, okay, the main character is a recovering drug addict. Okay, great. Now, I'm like, maybe this falls in line with like the Frank idea, since the Cenobites are props in this movie. What we're left with is the personal drama, okay, and that could lends itself to such. It could have been this like really heavy exploration into, trying to push further with experience and using drugs to like, gain higher levels of experience and pushing the envelope, similar to most people who go into the La Marchande configuration. They're looking for that next thing. With Frank, It was sex. Maybe with Riley, it could have been like being high or drugs or like consciousness expansion or something like that,
Right.
But they didn't do that. She was just like a generic drug addict character that could have been in any movie, and they didn't really go deep with any of that stuff. Okay, well, there's tension between her and her brother. Her brother's like getting on a case to getting her life together and doesn't trust her and all these things, which is like, yeah, okay, those are dramatic elements, but they didn't go deep into the character enough, I thought.
No, not at all. And, people are talking a lot about the Dahmer show and exploitation. And, this whole thing of making her an addict and not really doing anything with it felt a little gross to me.
Sure.
It didn't even work on a metaphorical level. Addiction is hell. This movie is about hell. But Riley is not in hell. She has an apartment. She has a car. She has a job. She has a supportive brother.
Yeah.
Who loves her. We know he loves her because he actually says it. You're my sister. I love you. You know,
Yep.
that's about as interesting as these characters get. But yeah, like so, like it didn't even work on like some sort of like, oh, this movie is really a metaphor about trauma and addiction, but it's not. It just felt gross to me. She's a drug addict, and she'll make some mistakes because she's a drug addict. And but nothing she does like is a result. Well, you know, I was going to say nothing she does is a result of drugs, but she does take the pills, which again annoyed me. Like, oh, she's on pills.
Yeah,
Well, what kind of pills?
Yep,
Do your
exactly.
fucking research.
Yeah, yeah, that's
She's
exactly
on pills.
Yeah, pills. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What kind of pills? You know. So I just thought that was like you had a pretty deep well to go to for, you know, interesting material. Do something with this. You know, like you said, I like your idea of like, yeah, she's looking for that next thing, for something more. Drugs don't do it for her anymore.
Exactly. You know, and I'm sorry. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
No. Like, or yeah, metaphorically, like, oh, this is going to be like a addiction. It's hell and everything. It does absolutely nothing with it.
Exactly. You know, and that's yeah. When I first discovered that's what the plot elements were of this, I was like, okay, well now it's going to be this really fringe, edgy, you know, take on all this stuff, and it's not at all. You know, and like I said. With Frank, I hate to do this, but since this is like a reboot of the entire series, this is like day one, year one for this thing. We're going back to the beginning. So in the original series, you know, the original movie, Frank, you have it. You know what his motivation is for why he ended up where he was. You know, and
right.
And you believe it. If you look at that guy. And you believe that dude is doing all the things that he says he does and that you read about. You know what I mean? He just looks like he just looks like trouble. That guy. You know what I'm saying? The guy who plays Frank.
Oh, totally. And his name's Frank.
Yeah, Frank. You know, and you know, the black shirt, you know, the gold chain, like all that stuff. You know what I mean?
And then and that's good casting too.
100%. And her boyfriend too. I don't buy that either one of them are drug addicts. Really. You know, they don't look sketchy enough for me. You know.
Yeah, he looks like the singer for Dillinger Escape Plan. You know, he's a good-looking guy. He's in shape.
Yeah, he's kind of buff. You know what I mean? He's got a nice tan. You know, and he's like really well dressed and everything.
Yeah, and she's a junkie, but that is supposed to not have her life together. But she's not doing that at all. Like I said, you know.
Yeah.
Likes to live, and you know, and we're introduced to these characters having sex. You think maybe, oh, this could be kind of interesting, but the movie is so vanilla. It is so the opposite of what it's based on. You said Frank was a very rich character. The original is just filled with great characters, and I feel like this is filled with generic, you know, TV characters. Like, tell me one trait about any of these characters, and it's just flat surface level. Like, this is her brother. He's gay. This is his boyfriend. This is the roommate. She actually says, hi, I'm the roommate.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's her character, the roommate. There's just nothing there. Like, you don't care about any of these people.
Well, let's talk a minute about modern casting then, because
sure,
you know, we've got, and I don't really know what other things that Odessa Azion's been in, but
I didn't recognize her.
Yeah, I think like back in the 80s when you wanted to cast a movie, you would get a guy like Sean Chapman, you know, who played Frank, who looks like trouble. Yeah. Like that guy looks like he just looks like he's up to no good all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then like when you're talking about like female drug addict character actresses, you know, there's Zoe Lund or someone like that, you know, from Miss 45 that is actually was actually a heroin addict. You know what I mean? That you would have her, like you would have these believable characters, or even like Harvey Keitel, who looks like a bad sort of guy. You know what I mean? None of these characters really exude any of that negativity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. They're just pretty faces. Like Riley looks like she'd be like a hipster model. You know, you could see her on the cover of like I don't know, the fashion magazines, or maybe she's in a band or
Yeah.
something. Like she had that kind of vibe to her. Um, it just the film was more concerned with populating it with good-looking people, but there's no real standout performance amongst this crop of characters. I will say the actor who plays sort of the I guess he's the villain of the movie,
Roland. Yeah.
Roland. He's good.
Yeah. No, that's in the beginning of this movie when I first saw him, oh, okay, this guy has like this urbane like sort of vibe, and he's a different element to the film that isn't really present and isn't present at all actually in the other things, and this could be very interesting, and that gave me a little bit of a positive feeling about it, but yeah, he did a great
Sure.
job, I thought.
Yeah, and right away, like not making this movie about him, I think was a mistake. I think, well, that's your movie right there. It starts in Serbia. This guy's looking for the box. He's looking for something more. He's an interesting character and a good actor. That's the movie for me. That's what it should have been.
Yeah.
But then after like generic intro, you were introduced to these generic do nothing characters. And they hatch like a plot to steal this guy's like a delivery driver, and he's like, well, I know that there's something with some value, and it's not breaking in because I know the key code. And right there, I was like, oh, that's bad writing. Every time you punch a key code in somewhere, they know who did it. Everyone that you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was just kind of, I mean, I guess that kind of comes up later in a sort of twist that was just glaringly obvious from the get-go, but whatever. Again, that movie, like that twist, this movie thinks it's very clever, but it's really not.
Yeah, it's for a movie that has been in production for like over a decade, it's like you think the script could have been done better,
Oh, I mean, this had brought out two of my two tropes that annoy me in horror movies. There's the Google search scene, almost always preceding or following the hospital visit scene, where they go to visit a character who knows something about the mystery, but the character is really unwilling to talk about it. And those scenes are back to back in this movie, and it drove me fucking nuts.
Yeah.
The lady in the hospital, she's, again, interesting character. She has a lot of conflicted feelings about working for Roland. She's dying. She's rethinking all the things she did in life. There's another interesting character that's in the movie for all of 5 minutes.
Well, one of the notes I had written about this whole thing, it's almost like these could have been the first two movies in the new franchise. Honestly, is Roland's story, right? Because it seems like a lot of stuff had happened. You know what I mean? Like he's a regular person, and then like eventually you see him later on, and he's much different than he is in the beginning. I'm not going to get on. If anyone who hasn't seen the film will understand what I'm talking about. Will know when they see the film what I'm talking about. And then there's these new young bucks who find the La Marchand configuration, and that's another story. That could be two different movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and flesh out these characters some more. I mean, recast, rewrite. I mean, you could have something.
You got to call the Frenchman in to direct it, maybe. That we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, just completely tear it down and redo it, and you might have something.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like there is a more interesting movie in here somewhere that they didn't make. Like you have Roland, his assistant, his journey to the box. That would be a cool creative spin on this. Maybe the Cenobites show up at the end. But yeah, that's just not what we got. Instead, we sort of got a generic, long-winded, boring movie.
I have to admit,
boring Hellraiser movie.
My mind was definitely wandering during this movie, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I had to go back and then watch it again just to talk about it, because at this point it's been about 2 weeks since it came out, and I just forgot about most of it.
Yeah.
And watching it a second time, I was like, oh, now I know why. This movie's boring and vanilla and uninteresting. I mean, again, yeah, I hate to compare it to the original, but like I said, it exists. It exists in that world. You felt the kills in that original movie. Here, they sort of shy away from it.
Yeah. And you know what? My thing now is about like, oh, I don't want to bring up the original. Well, you know what? You should have made your own original idea then, and not called it Hellraiser. If you don't want to be compared to the original movie, then don't do a Hellraiser movie. You know what I mean? Like, come up with your own idea, and like call it something else. And that's how. If you're gonna make the movie, you're gonna be compared to the original film. That's how I see it.
Well, and the only things that I really liked about it are from the original, and they reimagined them a bit, but they're still from the original. Like the Cenobites aren't leather clad anymore. They sort of use their own skin as clothing, which I thought was interesting. I love the design of the Cenobites. I thought they were fantastic.
They were cool, but I prefer the black leather and how one of them was wearing sunglasses the entire time, like in the original movie.
Yeah, no, of course I do too. But as far as this movie goes, not bad. They did a good job with that. The makeup team did a very effective job. Like, they look creepy.
I wonder if like there's sun in the gash, like in the universe those guys live in, like why that dude, or he just liked wearing sunglasses, like in the original one.
I bet you somewhere there's fan fiction or something that explains it. I would be shocked if there wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, the new box. That was cool.
Yeah, it had the 4P symbol on it. I don't know if you noticed that. There was like that Process Church symbol.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, that was a nice touch, I thought. Except probably most likely the person was just like, oh, look at this thing I found on, Getty Images or whatever,
I found someone was talking about this on Reddit. Let's throw it in the movie.
Yeah.
No, but I like, okay, the box changes shape. It has a cool sound design. You really feel those pieces moving with those mechanical sounds in the background. This, however, came up even in the original. This puzzle box is way too easy to solve. It seems like anyone who touches this thing can figure it out.
I've had ideas about that too. Like where the box is maybe more difficult for certain people than others. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's in my mind. I don't know if that was ever written anywhere or there was anything to support that theory, but that's just my personal, theory about it.
That's interesting. I remember in Hellraiser 2, they made it a point like that the girl who doesn't talk is an expert on puzzles.
Right.
And it made me think, well, why do you even need one? Like, exactly. Kirsty's figured this thing out in seconds.
Frank figured it out,
Yeah, it's, like I said, it seems like anyone who touches it opens up the hell world. In this movie, it's a girl on quote unquote pills.
On drugs, quote unquote. Yeah.
On drugs. She was doing drugs.
She was passing drugs.
God, this fucking movie, man. It's also like weird aesthetic. Like, I guess Riley's brother goes missing and it's her fault, because she's on drugs. She's on pills. So her brother goes missing trying to help her. And she feels bad. And eventually she ends up in Roland's mansion where she does research for like 6 hours. When she gets there, the sun is up and the sun is going down when she's done reading. And of course she retains all of the information she read. And then they decide to leave her car behind. And they even make it a point to mention that. Like, hey, do you want to roll with us? She's like, yeah, fuck me. Yeah, I was like, no, that didn't make any sense to me.
Nope, not at all.
It's just weird writing, because I guess at the end they need something to drive away in because they totaled the van. And like, oh, good thing we left Riley's car there for no fucking reason whatsoever. it was just lazy, just odd choices all over this movie.
So, what would you give as far as a score to this movie?
Oh God, I give it a 1.5.
Oh, okay.
I liked the box. I liked that it moved around and had a cool sound design. Like they stuck to the original box pretty well, but they also put their spin on it, which I like. I loved the Cenobites. I know I said some, negative things about her performances as Pinhead, but she was a perfectly fine Pinhead. If they make a good movie with her as Pinhead, I'd be psyched. And that's pretty much all you got for this. It is a flat, vanilla take on Hellraiser. What about you, Mike?
I give it a 2. Yeah, 2 out of
Okay.
5. Yeah, I for the same reasons, basically. I just was really disappointed in it.
I was too, because it's a concept I think you can do a lot with, and you can make a smart movie with. And this just feels very, there's no passion behind it. And I know, like I said, they trotted out Clive Barker, and Clive Barker's like, oh, this film is great, this director's great, but like, I don't feel it. I'm not buying it. I don't feel like anyone involved with this really cared enough to make a good movie. I mean, no one wants to make a bad one, but it just felt passionless to me.
That's a good descriptive for it, passionless. Yeah, that's how I feel about it too, passionless.
And, I'm sure we're going to see a few more of these. I'm sure we haven't seen the end of Pinhead and Riley. It's kind of hard to judge. This went straight to Hulu, so it's kind of hard to tell how well it did. I know reviews were mostly positive for this, which I also find confusing. I'm not sure why people love this movie. You see, like, oh, it's the second best Hellraiser movie, which I don't know. It's kind of hard to argue with that. Since they're all varying degrees of bad after the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that you could do something really good with this, because I know, like I said, the comic books that they did were pretty awesome, man. They did a good job, and it just, all you got to do is maybe read some of that stuff and maybe like get some ideas and go for it. I just I don't get it though. I don't understand why people are having such a hard time with making a decent film in this world.
Yeah, it's very confusing to me as well. It's sort of like when the Nightmare on Elm Street remake came out. You're literally dealing with dreams where you can do anything, and this is what you give us. There's so many people making great visionary horror films now, and if you got the IP Hellraiser, there's just so much you can do with it. And it just makes it even more disappointing. Like, oh, what could have been if you got the right team of people?
Yeah.
And this has nothing other than, like, keeping the same makeup and effects crew. Like, get rid of everything else, except maybe the actor who plays Roland. Make the movie about him, and you might have something.
I think that would probably have been a better plot line, honestly, because it kind of leaves you wondering about Roland. I mean, maybe the second one is going to be a prequel, about how Roland, because, or maybe not. I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know where they're going with this. I feel like, I committed the worst sin of being forgettable, and I don't think, for all the praise this movie seems to be getting, I think it's going to go the way of the Poltergeist remake, where people are like, oh, that exists. It's just so forgettable, and yeah, just nothing there. But that's the world we live in. They're going to make a bunch more of these. I'm sure they are, or they'll reboot it again until the end of time. and hopefully they'll get it right eventually, because I think there's 10, 11 Hellraiser movies, and somehow you only have one that's really, really good.
Yeah. And I believe there's, like Damien Leone, like made a great fucking, movie with a world building element to it, and maybe we give Damien Leone the Hellraiser franchise. I don't know,
Anyone but David Bruckner.
Yeah.
I guess he was not the man for the job. I mean, it was just sort of hiring just the generic video director, just visionless, just not good.
Imagine if it came down to like when you go to a job interview and they have Pascal Laugier and Bruckner there. They interview them. They look at their resume and stuff, and then so at the end of the interview, they're like, "All right, so what kind of compensation do you need?" And then like Bruckner was like a couple grand cheaper than Laugier, so they went with him.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong, because you put everyone's resume on the table. It's obvious who you give the job to. It kind of makes me wonder what they pitched them, and they were like, "Fuck that."
They're all doing that, like all doing cocaine and stuff. Yeah, man, it's gonna be the biggest thing ever. It's gonna be awesome, man. We're gonna make Pinhead a woman, and there's gonna be all this drugs and sex and everything, and then let's fucking do it, man. It's gonna be great. And then this is how we end up. We end up with this.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate. And also, fuck Hulu for adding commercials to this. That really annoyed me. Just really dumb.
Yeah, that was killing me, the commercials, man, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't even that many of them, but it's just annoyed the shit out of me. So I went into 10 minutes in the movie, I'm annoyed. I was like, a commercial? I pay for this site. I pay for this app.
That's a mystery to me, man. But hey, man, times are tough, I guess.
I guess so. I mean, I know when we did Prey did not have commercials. I don't think it did. I think I'd remember if it did. But I will say skipping the theaters was probably the smarter decision they made for this, because it doesn't feel like a movie at all. It feels like TV. So this belonged on TV, whereas Prey felt like a theatrical movie. But, whatever. I don't know how these people make these decisions.
All right, man. Well, thanks. And thank you all for listening. And I hope that, we're not trying to be killjoys, but by all means, go out and see this film and let us know what you think. Let us know if we're on point, or let us know if we're totally full of shit with our opinions about this movie.
Well, I'm sure we will hear something.
Yeah.
crushed from the shoulder. You can hear the bones humming, singing like a concher, singing like a puncher.
Do it, dude.
All right.